Let's shift gears a little bit, talk about change management. Certainly change management, I think with technology is a significant problem for families. I see them where they'll select the right technology or technology that should work, but they don't get the results from it because often it's the implementation and the basic, change is hard. It's a human thing. But you had a great blog post on this one as well. The chief of getting stuff done, kind of like a chief implementer. Talk to me about why that role is so important and why change can be so hard for family offices.
Yeah, so that was inspired by some of the families that I work with or have worked with in the past, and the idea is that there's a what you'd probably call a first delegation point, right? And when there's a decision that's made within the office, however that decision comes about, who's going to implement it, or what's the process that we go through? And what I found invariably was there was always one or two people that would go right. They'll take ownership of it, or they'll being given ownership of it because they knew that it would at least start. And big part of my business at the beginning was to provide consulting services and say, well, this is how you should do it. This is my recommendation, and then it would sort of sit on someone's desk. And you talk to them in a year's or two's time, and they go, and you go, what happened there? And they go, well, nothing happened. And this is why I changed my business model to be a little bit more of a person that sits within the office as more of a fractional person or investment committee member, because you can kind of move it along, right? Especially if the cadence is monthly. But within those offices that don't have that, they have a chief of getting stuff done. And people go, well, that must be the CEO. So no, the strategy is decided on. Now we have to implement it. And a lot of the time, that's a chief operating officer or someone. A lot of the time, I see CFOs in that position. People that have multiple
chief of staff, CFO.
But whoever can see across lines, across silos, I think in particular. And the reason why I like the title is because it kind of implies that it's not there's not a specific title given to someone, but them if you will recognize them in your office. And the feedback for a lot of people from that blog and that podcast episode was either that's me, I'm like, okay, that's great, or I know exactly who that is. And the idea is that if they weren't in the office, then nothing would get done. And I think a lot of the time change within offices is difficult because you have to give the space and time for someone to do it. And a lot of the time it's given to someone that already has a job. You know what I mean? Like there's this element of, oh, okay, well, this project is particularly on the reporting side. This is what I found a lot, which was we're going to give it to the CFO because the CFO owns the data. A lot of the time, if you're using Excel and stuff like that, that's, because there's no fudging cash flow. Investment reporting is kind of fugazi, it's a little pixie dusty, but no, there's no fudging cash flow. Cash is either coming in or it's going out. There's no did it or didn't it. You know what I mean? Like there's compliance and there's government regulation, and there's audit, and there's all this kind of cool stuff. So that's why that person tends to hold the responsibility for the source of truth, right? And so what ended up happening was they're like, oh, here's reporting. And they go, I am the CFO, man. Like I got a lot of stuff I got to deal with. I'm not going to have to deal with this as well. And so really what ends up happening is people's capacity gets filled and all the rest of it. So what I always recommend for family offices is to get that started, is to get the person that starts things, to get a project in place and get allocation of resources. And if you're not going to do that, then externalize it. But the person that makes that decision to externalize it is the chief of getting stuff done, because they're the one that goes, you know what, we're not going to do it in-house. We're going to kick the can down the road in 6 months or 12 months' time. We're going to be having the exact conversation that we're having now. And they realize that. And they go, I'm going to be able to talk to the principal about this. And to your point before, where they talk about line items, about expenses and stuff, they can articulate it really well, the value proposition of doing this. They know who to talk to in which way. They know how to bring people together. It's a really specific skill set. It really is, and it's hard to do. But it's something that needs to be in the office. And you get very good consultants in the space that do that for people, which is they go, right, I'm going to come in, I'm going to dip in, we're going to get this done. I'm going to allocate resources because I know what good looks like, to that point before. And we're going to get some, and then once it's business as usual, I'll bring someone in, or we'll hire for it, or we'll have some permanence here. And I think that tends to be the way that I've seen it work well.
Yeah, I think it's a great role. I think, family offices can certainly benefit from bringing in outside help and technology consultants, but there still needs to be that buy-in, that person that's internally that's going to be accountable for it and can make.
Yeah, and we've all seen it, right? So if you work with like Big Four or, a partnership-led kind of firm, the difference when you get a partner that advocates for something, and drives it through because they know how to navigate the complexity is very different to someone that can't. You know what I mean? Like you have to be a good navigator, but you have to, there's all these things. And it's always fun to find that person, especially like myself I'm external to the office, right? And when you recognize them and you go, well, that's the person that I need to articulate what I reckon we should do to them, because that's going to get it done.
Yeah, it's normally that person's busy, right? You want to get something done, give it to somebody that's busy. I think the other thing that you see with family offices and just firms in general when it comes to technology change, it's always going to take a little bit longer than you thought. It's always going to be more expensive than you thought. You need to build buffers into the
twice as long is the way that I generally say. Whatever we think it's going to take twice as long. Yeah.
Right. Even on conservative estimates, it ends up.
It always ends up being about twice as long as we expect.
In the case, but and to try to find those early wins, I think can be important too to get everybody on board.
Oh, look, and managing expectations. There's most of the way that I when I did the tech consulting piece, it was always like there's this first bit which I'm going to be super annoying because I'm going to be asking for a lot of data and all that sort of stuff, or the people we bring in is going to, and there's going to be this really messy bit in the middle where, to be honest, most people are going to go, what are we paying for here? Like, this doesn't look better. This doesn't look like an improved system. And then there's going to be this point where everyone goes, oh, okay. And that's the fun bit. But there's this messy bit in the middle where everyone, and this is probably where some people throw it out or just throw their hands up and go, this is terrible. I can't believe we're paying this much money or we put this much time into it. But I'm like, no, there's a process here. We're trying to, this, right? It's about reconciliation of the data set. It's about replacing reportage that they're really comfortable with new reporting, which looks slightly different, but you still have, and this is why it's so important to have someone, a champion internally or someone like a, chief of getting stuff done, because they're like, no, I recognize which part of of the process we're in, which is this messy middle bit, but it's going to get better. It's going to be really, really good to get through this.
Yeah, technology it's a messy business, and you kind of have to go through that messy middle stage.
And no one likes change, Mark, right? No one likes, I like it this way. I like my Excel dashboard, or I like
the way we always did it, right? Yeah. And when we always did it this way, that is the harbinger of, you need to change. But then you get through the other side, and they couldn't imagine going back. That's when you end up in a good state.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the great things about natural language versions of it means that we can get those people that would not normally be engaged with the process engaged. Like, you can see the way that they're interrogating it, just what's my 1 year return on this asset, and you start to see them train it a little bit. You know what I mean? And it starts to the point where it's almost like monthly, it's going to start pinging out really, really good information for them that they are easily accessible, and you just see them light up. And that's what I love about operations. Investments are great, but it takes 3, 5, or 7 years to figure out if you've made the right decision or not. But operations and technology, like, sometimes that can be instantaneous. They can be really a sharp relief between, what was and what is. So that's what I like.
Yeah, especially with the technology today, as you point with AI, large language models, ability to have like a conversation with your data. I mean, you don't in some ways you're not going to necessarily know how to use the system or how to write that report, but you know what information you want. And if you could, articulate that in natural language, it's extremely powerful. I think I often wonder what will make family offices modernize. And I'm speaking in general terms. There are some very progressive modern family offices out there, but certainly due to the nature of being cost centers too, that there tends to be, the bell curve tends to be a little bit more towards the laggards. And I just think some of the technology out there, especially if they're on legacy systems or not on systems, but Excel based, is the opportunity to reduce your risk and to be able to enhance your overall posture. It's too great now with AI.
Oh, and engage with the next generation is just a massive thing, right? Because it's very hard to engage with something you can't see or an Excel spreadsheet, even if it is a really nice pivot table. There is I mean, a big part of it is being able to customize reportage to people and to talk to them and understand what they're looking for and customize it to them, even using the same data sets, right? Or have them articulated themselves, which is even better. But, I think the next generation in particular needs it on their phone. You know what I mean? We're not sending spreadsheets here. Like the engagement of, like, if I think about my kids, right? My son's 13. And in 5 years' time, potentially, he would be a steward within the family office, if this was a family office, right? And you go, how are you going to see this data? And he'll go, well, it's got to be on my phone because this is the only thing that I carry with me. This is the only way I interact with stuff. And if it's not, they're like, well, then I'm out. You know what I mean? Like I'm not part of it. So if you're not, and look around the room when you have family board meetings and stuff like that, and you look at the back of the room, and if they're just on their phone and they're not engaged with it, you have to think about that. So I think from a next gen kind of point of view, it's no longer like a good to have; it's a must have for sure.
They want it when they want it, and they want it on their device of choice. And their device of choice is their phone, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Otherwise, they're not going to look at it.
It doesn't exist.